Good morning. My name is Kirsty Dignam, and I'm here as always to look at the energies for the week with today's Monday's Musings on the 23rd of March 2026. I have to look to one side to see what date it is and where I am. I have to take a moment to pause to really restructure my focus, whether that's the date in the corner of my screen or the camera that I'm now looking into, which has been moved. Although it was higher up, although my perspective was higher up and far more flattering, not only to myself but to the light around me, it meant that my focus, my vision was scattered. I didn't know where to look. So, at the cost of being less physically appeasing when it comes to the amount of light that can be seen and the 3D perspective that is being recorded, I have chosen to bring the vision closer to home, to really emphasize and be aware of what is right in front of me. And that is the invitation this week. If we can recognize the presence of our own reflection being created around us, we will acknowledge and accept, receive, and work with a far greater language that is trying to come through. I was going to say older language, but that can be some of the misconception this week. That there has to be a certain amount of time that has passed, there has to be a certain amount of experience that has been gained, there has to be a certain amount, yes, thank you, of worth and recognition that has been received or applied before we can run with what is being given to us. Because there are things being given to us. It may not feel like that in the world at large, particularly when we are experiencing what can appear to be repetitive cycles, which I'll get onto in a moment. I feel like I need to have taken a moment to take notes, and this week we may sense that so much is coming in, we don't know what to focus on, and to write down things that need to be created and done in a certain timely order. You know, me looking at the date in the corner. But all we need to do is pause, to acknowledge that as we go through the experience, the motion of feeling, what is relevant will remain, and what isn't to. And that is where the choice we will all be facing will come from this week. The language that is coming through. And it will be for some, you know, myself included, I've started to study, but it will be for some a different, almost appear as if it's a different type of language. Now, whether that's you're wanting to be able to translate in different countries, whether that's you're studying light language, whether that's you're opening up to different sounds or different ways of creating, these are all light languages, right? Color, vibration, sequences, coincidences, repetitions in our scenarios. They are all a communication of light, which helps us to really perceive what is going on, not only in front of us but within, based on our level of understanding. And it's that we're being asked to go back to in our own, I want to say upbringing, yes, in our own upbringing. This morning I nearly said, like I said, I nearly said good morrow. So a real ancient, older English, okay, a real more poetic way of speaking that felt very relevant to the knowledge that is rising around us, underneath the noise, that is demanding in its necessity a different vibration from us in order to hear it. Now, that different vibration doesn't come in our mindset, and it doesn't come in our physical energy, although these things are important, yeah? But if we say something positive and our body doesn't believe it, there's a lack of alignment there, okay? So that vibration comes in a union within us. That vibration comes from knowing that what we are lacking, and I'm going to use the word lacking, what we are, okay, being aware of where we are using the word lacking, and in reality it's what we are seeking, knowing they are one and the same, not just individually but collectively. What we are seeking has to come from within. This is nothing that we don't already know. And I'm not advocating that you work in a sphere that is out of your practice. You know, this doesn't, I'm not saying if you're physically poorly, then you treat yourself without the knowledge and wisdom to be able to do that. What I'm saying vibrationally, if you find a situation requires more patience, become that patience. If you find a situation requires more joy, maybe look at where that joy is in your own life. Maybe look at how you can bring that to that situation. It's the, I don't know if anybody's ever watched like Disney films or Pixar films. I'm not going to get into the hoo-ha behind it. I'm getting into, and that feels important. I did a workshop at the weekend around tuning forks, and one of the quotes that they used on one of the slides was from a well-known spiritual advisor who is under the spotlight at the moment for their less than positive behaviours. And I ummed and ahed about whether or not to remove the comment, the quote that I was using. But I believed in the quote, I believed in the information, I believed in the greater picture of what was trying to be put across. Who said it was irrelevant. Whether they were aligned to it or not was nothing to do with me. The question was I aligned to it? And I was. I believed in that message, in that medicine, in that wisdom. Which is something we're going to be encouraged to really fit into this week as well. We may get insights from people that we're not necessarily attracted to or connected to or resonating with. Listen to what is being shared, not how it's being shared or the person that's sharing it. Listen to the energy of what's being shared. If there's something underneath it or in it, you know, this is really about developing our communication skills, okay? Starting with our own, but really, really listening to the language of light that is trying to come through. Whether that's light language, whether that's colour, whether that's vibration, whether that's the tarot, whether that's dancing, whether that's creating, whether that's our children talking. Finding the light in what is being communicated, okay? Really hearing what is being said is going to be so important this week, because underneath it all, that is where the chance to shift our vibration is coming from. To recognize that to listen is an action, a very underutilized one, particularly in the empathic world, right? When we feel something, we want to help with what we're feeling. We want to react. We get that call to action. And this is where I want to talk about the energy of fire. We get that spark of initiation. We get that, this has to change because it's sparking something within me. The invitation this week, the guidance this week, is to allow that to not only initiate us, but to go through the process of that initiation from within first. And that can take 5 minutes, that can take a few weeks, that can take 6 years or more, which I want to bring up some of the obvious repetitive cycles that are occurring in regards, well, they've been the same pretty much since the pandemic. I was talking to a dear friend of mine yesterday, and the conversation that was being had, the conversation that was being had was a conversation that had been had the year before, and the year before, and the year before. It's not to say that it isn't happening, but there was a lack of change in the tone, in the energy, and in that, the way forward with it. We are going to see things come up that are very similar, or they're not similar. They're actually similar in the reactions within us that are still there, that haven't been worked through, that haven't been transformed, that haven't followed the process of fire. Okay, they haven't followed the process of fire. They've ignited us, they've caused a reaction, but that transformation hasn't been completed and integrated, which is the final aspect of fire. In order for something to be re-sparked and reignited, it has to go out. And I feel that whether that's in our awareness, whether that's in our mindset, whether that's in our physical body, I've been acutely aware over the last few weeks how many souls are facing a decision of whether or not to continue doing what they're doing on many levels, including life itself, because it hasn't been completed, it hasn't ended. There's still a focus of this initiation reaction energy. Okay, when we think about the symbol of fire, it's a triangle. Okay, so initiation, reaction, service. What do we do with this? How can this transform us and our actions? Well, the key is in what we feel is lacking. There are going to be things that come up that are very similar to the pandemic. Now that can be, or times around that, that can be the familiar themes of war, or the familiar themes of conflict, or the familiar themes of conspiracy theories, or the familiar, and it's like the end game now, it's like the end parts of these. So what was once initially conspiracy theories are being seen by people on the larger scale, right? So it's bigger. This is all bigger, you know, potential lockdowns, whether they are energetic because we're shutting down because of the familiarity or the trauma, whether they are physical because of fuel shortages and food shortages, whether they are actually viral, which could potentially be another invitation to look at repetitions. These lockdowns, we are more aware of them. We are more aware of these consequences. We are more aware of what is happening. But there's a final stage in our action or reaction to that, which can only be found by going into the similarity of what's already happened. So an example, this morning on my time hop, 6 years ago today, in the middle of lockdown, I shared a video dancing with my dog because the world, the global world, not being able to go outside, we're dancing and recording it and sharing that and doing it almost like a challenge to get people up on their feet and moving and, you know, shifting through the energy. Many of the situations that are repeating are doing so without the beautiful medicine and wisdom that we brought to them. The hope, the drive, the confusion and the fear, but the sod it all, I'm going to dance type energy as well. The community, you know, in the previous lockdown, the communities that were built online were awe-inspiring. I just had my own included, so yes, maybe. You know, so these opportunities that are coming back up are to go backwards and claim what we have done before that has worked, that we have shrugged off, that has just been shrugged off. The truth of the matter is we have all been transformed and changed over the last 6 years. More, of course, but particularly over the last 6 years. But there hasn't been a completion of that change in our reactions to them. They are trauma-based, which is understandable, and another opportunity to go through the process of transformation that is fire. Which brings me on to another aspect of fire. Yesterday, I haven't prepped at the moment because I can't afford to buy extra food and I have no storage to put the extra food in, and I'm basing everything on trust and hope because I'm doing the best I can in this situation. And out of the blue yesterday, I was given an opportunity to rent some land to grow vegetables. And of course, my initial knee-jerk reaction is I may very well need this. And then I connected to the land, and I sat indoors and realised I've always wanted to be self-sufficient. War aside, rations aside, I've always wanted to be reconnected to the earth, to work with the earth, to grow with the earth. And the earth has always wanted that from me, just like she does with all of her children. So what has been initiated initially from less than desired experiences, what we may be given from less than hopeful outcomes. You know, I love the fact I'm renting land. I would prefer it to be my own, but what we're being given from less than hopeful outcomes is still the same opportunity that it's always been about. Whatever that may be for you. So if you're finding yourself in repetitive situations that leave you drained and yearning for joy, maybe it's because you need to find some joy and be that joy. If you're finding yourself in situations that are based on having no hope, maybe it's because you're lacking hope and need to be that hope. I'm not saying you have to do for others. Do for yourself first. Of course, get yourself in alignment. That's never been more vital before you share, so that you recognise where you're sharing from. But don't forget you're part of the communication. in your responses. Learn to listen. Learn to translate, or at least recognize where you're translating from. That's the vibrational shift we're all being asked to embody more. We do find ourselves in between. It's not even different timelines, it's segregated aspects of our soul right now. Go back into the core. Think of our soul like a tree. Okay, you have your core energy and these branches of different things and different versions and different roles, and you can call it timelines, past lives, whatever, but at the root of them all is a core energy that is being called to action. Not necessarily in what you do, but in how willing you are to embody that. Is there anything else to share? I'm aware that we're 15 minutes in, and obviously on Instagram I can only go to 20 minutes before cutting the video, so you will have to watch the rest on YouTube if you want to see the weekly reading. I'm not going to force, and that feels quite important, to acknowledge that people can only receive what they're ready to receive on the level they're ready to receive it, ourselves included. To have some compassion there. Yes, that's the other thing I want to share. The land that I'm renting, I was given two options. One was a smaller one was slightly bigger. The smaller one was all perfect. Very manageable, very easy, nice and neat and tidy. And I have a Virgo moon, so it ticked all the boxes for me mentally and for my husband. But I couldn't help but feel drawn to this other piece of land right by the side of it. Not just because it was bigger, but because it needed my input. It needed my love. It needed my hands. It needed to connect and communicate with me. I could feel that draw of necessity and subsequent growth between us. When we feel as if we need something, if we don't reach out to that, we then cannot share what we can give to that situation also. But I felt that with this land that needs a lot more work and has a lot more wisdom to provide as a result. And the beauty is, not only is it right next to one of the managers of the allotment, who I will be bending his ear because I have no idea how to do what I'm going to do or even what we're going to do, my husband and I there. But I know we're going to share it. I know we're going to be part of something bigger than us. And the land that we have decided to rent was the site for bonfires. That makes me really emotional. It was the site of taking everything that had been grown that was no longer needed to be burnt and mulched down. And as a result, the land itself, whilst it may not be as pretty, whilst it may not be as organised, whilst it may not be, or at least appear to be, as ready in a more appeasing manner, is so full of nutrients that whatever is placed in that soil as a result of everything being completed, burnt down, transformed, is set to be incredibly abundant, provided it's cared for and respected for what it is and listened to and communicated with, which is my lesson from the land. So I'm very impatient. Very impatient, because I am a fire sign, so I'm very impatient, and I can happily see the stages of fire, but the bit in between I can get a little bit come on, let's do something. The land is then going to show me the beauty of patience, the stillness of patience, the fact that I'm going to have to wait for the shed that I want, that I'm going to have to wait for the seeds to grow, that I'm, whether that's financially, emotionally, physically, there's going to be some work. And in that work, in that patience, there's going to be solid foundations for times to come. This week, I'm getting ready to stop for Instagram. This week, if you do nothing else but look at the repetitive situations that are rising, feel and listen to what is needed from you and of you, first for yourself and those around you, and start to make those integrated shifts. Doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be different, but definitely more complete, more aligned, and more, as a result, powerful in its response, in its communication. You may just learn something you have yet to translate yourself, about yourself. So I'm going to leave it there for Instagram. Pop on over to YouTube for the weekly video and the tarot cards for the days ahead. And I'll see you there and next week. Take care. So for those that have stayed on YouTube, and for those on TikTok, and for those that have come back over from Instagram, thank you for taking the time. For, you know, it can be really easy when things land in our lap in one place, when we don't have to search, when we don't have to work, when we don't have to seek things out like that little garden plot, when it's all done and tidy and dusted and very, very pleasing on the eye. Like I say, I get it. When things are aligned and structured, it looks beautiful. And we don't necessarily, particularly in today's world, we don't necessarily want to have to do more than we have to do, right? This week, there's a great encouragement to, it's not about do more, do differently. If you normally have things just given to you, whether that's advice or instruction or whatever it is that you need, if it's just given to you, maybe provide that energy for another. Maybe question why it's being given to you. Maybe determine whether or not you still need it. Now, I'm not saying move away from ease and grace. Just the ease and grace isn't always linear. It can be very circular. It can be very multifaceted. And only in the spirals can we reclaim those parts of us that we've pushed away, that have made things less easy and graceful. Okay, so let's have a little drink. And that feels important as well. A little celebration this week, a little raise of our glasses. Got honey on my fingers. Trap more flies with honey, right? A little raise of our glasses to what we have achieved. A little raise of our glasses to who we have become. A little raise of our glasses to, you know, one of the things I noticed about the video that I posted on YouTube, back then in the COVID days, I didn't do videos. Was not interested in social media or doing or sharing or reading in public. Reading in public was never anything that I was willing to do. And it wasn't because I couldn't. It was more, I preferred to be in my lane, right? I preferred to do things how I was being encouraged to do them at that time. But during the pandemic, there was this urge, this urgency in me to share to those that needed it. There was this call to action within me, and now I'm doing them at the market. Yeah, I'm doing them on YouTube. And whilst it may not be what I expected, whilst it may not be to the level of some of the external information that is provided, I know in my core what is being shared through and of me is heard by those that need it, myself included. So when I have to edit this video, I hear a lot of the information back and think, oh God, yeah. And I raise a glass. I raise a glass to the fact that I took time to record this and that it can be beneficial to me as well. That's the other side of being of service. That's the other part of the completion that a lot of us are missing. Okay, it's not that we haven't done what we've been asked to do. Have we received it back from ourselves first and foremost, but then also from the environment around us? And if not, where do we need that harmony to say, hang on, this situation is lacking joy, so am I, and that's why it's coming up. How can I find the joy and then become it? Because that is the other energy. You know, I was looking back over the video that I did for the year ahead, and I was quite surprised, egotistically, surprised to see that from what I can sense, there was no war in there. You know, from a predictive perspective, that's, hang on a minute, where was that? And actually for March, I saw fruition. I saw the energy of fruition, the Page of Pentacles. But underneath it all, there is the acknowledgement of war comes from when we're in conflict. Okay, war comes from when we are in battle with ourselves, with each other, with the land, with the potential that could be better served as a community. And if we can come back into that energy, if we can come back into the source of our own physical body, our own physical environment, reconnect to the earth, yes, there is a plan, or there is a suggestion that we grow food for obvious reasons. There is a suggestion that where we can, we stock up for obvious reasons. But underneath it, there is an invitation to be sustainable. There is an invitation, you know, with the fuel shortage to, like there was in COVID, to recognise. Now, listen, my husband drives and we don't need the fuel shortage for work. We don't need the hiking prices just like everybody else. And don't even get me started on agriculture, right? And ambulances and things like that. But there is also an invitation here to look at any unnecessary journeys where we can work from home, where we can walk more, where we can share, or like my husband said the other day, why don't schools have school buses? You know, where we can start to look at our impact on the environment, where we can use what is less than desired as an invitation to bring forward some necessary changes, not just for ourselves. During lockdown, people paused, they shared, they connected, they united. You know, you tend to find in an emergency, in a dire situation, people come together. What can we gain from this? What can we prepare ourselves from this? You know, how can we look back on the foundations that were built and start to really create upon those? We've been here before. We have, and it's bloody exhausting and it's tiring and, you know, it's devastating to watch again. But it isn't the same because we've been here before. So what did we gain from before? How can we put that into practice now so that the outcome has the potential to be different? Maybe not on the global scale, but most definitely individually. You know, and when enough ripples of the pond go a certain way, we build a current. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. It's really hard to share without feeling as if you're being what's the word? Oh, not judgmental, not authoritarian, like a, not even a teacher. Well, maybe it is like a leader. It's really difficult, isn't it? I'm not saying my way or the highway. I'm not saying, you know, your emotions aren't valid. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you feel as if, you know, you're tired, you're out of balance, you don't have the harmony, you're fear driven, or any of those things, they're welcome. These emotions are welcome, but they're not on their own as part of an individual system. They have the opportunity to lead you further into your own process. Just like the fire, just like the spark, just like the initiation. It's a process. Keep going. What do you need to stay safe, to stay held and seen from yourself first and foremost, so that you can follow this through now? Follow it through. The truth of the matter is, if I had my own land, I wouldn't know where to begin. I wouldn't know where to begin to how to best look after her. I just wouldn't know. So in preparing at the allotment, I'm going to learn so much about patience and the earth and the people that know what they're doing up there, that are growing, and the opportunity to do that, to prepare myself for the potential of having land, the honour of working with land. We have so much to learn. We think we're more ready than we are for the dreams that we want, and actually all the time they're individual. We have limited our understanding and our learning. All the time they are just our way, set how we want them. We have limited the experiences. The language that is trying to come through is more full and embodied. And that means it includes, or is necessarily based upon, different interpretations now. And that's up to us. Do we want to just speak one way, communicate one way, or do we want to be bilingual? And actually that's on the psychic sense as well. You know, I know we talk about whether we're clairaudient or clairsentient, or, you know, which one we're more inclined towards. The truth of the matter is, sixth sense is all our five senses but heightened. So we have the potential to be all of them. The more our sight upgrades, the more the rest of our body will. The more we will feel things, the more we will sense things, the more we will hear things, the more, and you know, that's down to us to filter that information. How? Well, I'm being shown the other card this year. You know, we talk about the 10, we talk about the Wheel of Fortune and the Magician and the Fool. The other card this year that adds up to 10 is the Sun card. There's a lot coming through with the central sun. Be mindful of the Syrian energy right now. There's a lot coming through with the central sun, with light itself. One of the things that happens when we're in lockdown, yeah, we didn't get outside. We had a lot less light. There's a lot coming through in regards to light, how we see it, how we communicate with it, how we create with it. But also the Sun card, the inner child, the inner wild, the innocence, not naivety, there's a big difference. The innocence, the imagination to hope for something different and become it. May just help with the Five of Arrows that is underneath the pack, which is frustration. So there's lots of things we want to try and achieve here. You can't see the card. There's lots of things we want to try and achieve here. And it's like dotted all over the place. Like I'm trying to do that and then I have to focus on that. No, bring the focus closer to home. What do you need in order to do these things? Remember the tree of the soul and the many, many branches. You can do all of these different things. We can all be, yes, the timelines are not separate. They are woven in and out of each other, and we are at the very center of them. So whether you believe in past lives or new earth or old earth, we can still, when we're in our presence, lean into those moments that may have gifts for us, but we must be in our presence. So if you're feeling frustrated this week, if your mind is scattered, if you don't quite know what to focus on, start with yourself, because you're the person that is aiming. I'm just seeing something Anuba showed me, which is a strange conversation in itself, isn't it? Something Anuba showed me. But if you're the person focusing the arrow, if you're the person striving towards something, where are you at before you do so? How grounded are you? And listen, this isn't meant as a judgment. This isn't meant as an opinion. This is just basic science, okay? So this isn't about balance. This is about harmony. How grounded are you? What do you need in order to go for what it is you require? The truth of the matter is I want to skip the bit with the allotment. Of course I do, because I can see the land. I can see the potential of the land. I can hear it calling me. We want to skip these shitty parts. Not that the allotment is that, but you know, we want to get to the bigger, better bits. Of course we do. But they're necessary stages. So the only reason we feel as if they're overwhelming or as if we can't do it is we may be fear driven. We may be overworked. We may be tired. What does the body need so that the mind doesn't scatter but remains focused on the greater perspective, the greater outcome, while still being able to prepare for each initiatory stage? Transformation, fire horse, fire energy itself, yeah? We can be aware of the whole flame. We can be aware of the light that is available. But what do we need to keep the spark going throughout? Well, it's our own light, right? The Sun card, 19, it is the Hermit year of last year and the Magician year of this year, coming together. That wisdom that we found from within, from walking the path of endurances, whether it was last year, whether it was 2020, whether it was when you were a teenager, whether it was when your relationship broke down, whatever you gained in those moments, how can you integrate them, fully embody them, gain every perspective that they have to share with you, and take that forward and create from it, not against it, not even with it, but as it. Do I need to do any more, really? And that could be the question that comes up. On the Monday, we have the Six of Stones. In this deck, it's exploitation. Okay, do we need to do any more? Do we need to keep going over this? Do we need to keep giving our energy to situations that want to stay the way that they are? Can we regain our focus? Can we be willing to look at why we want to change situations? Do we want to change them for the greater collective or because they make us feel uncomfortable? And in that, who's being exploited and who's doing the exploitation? We have the Six of Stones. Normally this is a balance of abundance and materialistic outcomes. However, in this one we have the bee. We have the infinite. It's that honey, right? More flies with honey. We have that infinite energy that looks at, okay, why do you feel the need to change this? What is going on for you? What needs to be transformed within you? What then can you bring to the situation? If you're wishing for calm in a circumstance, because for whatever reason it's lacking, can you bring that? On the Monday, can we restore harmony and balance? Well, number 6 is to do with choice, right? And it's also to do with beauty. Can we find the beauty of a situation? Now, I'm not saying that war is a beautiful thing, but the communities that can be based as a result can be, the coming together can be. I'm not saying that's a good enough reason for the war, far from it, but I'm talking about the soil that is left after the fire. What are we taking forward from all of this? If it does happen again, how will we be prepared? We can stock up all the toilet rolls in the world, but how are we prepared energetically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually? One of the biggest things that's left over still, obviously, from the previous restrictions is guilt, grief, emotional, I'm not going to say that word, emotional imbalances. You know, we haven't recovered from there. Not because we haven't got over or gone through what, but because we haven't seen and looked back how far we've come and what we did do and what we did gain. Cycles are only ever beneficial all the time there's something to be had from them. Okay, if there isn't, you know, if there's no honey left in the hive, why are we returning to it? On the Tuesday, we have the Moon card, and it's the first major arcana of the week ahead. And we have the buffalo here, but we also have herons. The landscape is very, I was going to say foggy, but it's not. It's illusionary, okay, in this card, but around us. The landscape is very illusionary. And this is where I'm being shown. These cards are the original Wildwood Tarot. You can't get them anymore. I didn't realise it at the time, and I loved them. I was in awe with them, with the energy of them. It felt so expansive. It felt a bit too much for me, actually, when I first got them from my brother, who just happened to find them in a shop, in a charity shop. And I put them outside to cleanse them, and they got wet and they got bent. And what is actually worth quite a bit of money got almost destroyed. You know, what is actually worth a lot energetically, physically, on all levels, emotionally, because my brother got them for me, which is unheard of. Love you, Adam. You know, almost got ruined. But now when I hold them, there's like a kinship there. There's like an understanding there of the journey that they've had, that I've had also, and a returning to the original wild there, that things do get misshapen. Tarot cards, us, the world, our understanding, our communications, our beliefs about things, they do get misconstrued, they do get misunderstood, because we want them to be a certain way, and that's actually the illusion. Okay, if we can start to accept things for what they are, and I'm not saying that we be okay with war, I'm really not, and if that's what you're hearing right now, this probably isn't the best place for you. You know, there's a different level of communication, or at least listening, that is heard, that is needed. But what I'm saying here is to look at anything that maybe doesn't make sense or is foggy, and recognize the illusion within it, the sense we're trying to make within it that just isn't there. Some situations need to be the way they are. They need to go through their own process. They do not need us to make them how we want them to be. And, you know, one of the biggest things in the previous lockdown, in the previous pandemic, was this, almost this separation amongst families and people and groups and circumstances and loved ones and friends, because there wasn't the permission to agree to disagree. If we don't have that, then we don't have the permission to be individual. And if we don't have that, we don't have autonomy. And if we don't have that, we are not who we're here to be. And if we don't have that, us aside, the earth, who knows what she needs, doesn't have the communication that is necessary to get it, through us being quite simply who we are. So looking at any illusions we have, particularly about ourselves, particularly about how we see ourselves in a situation. Times change. You know, I didn't expect to be doing videos. Here I am every week. It was not something that I planned. You may have normally been a certain way, but actually now you're being encouraged to be a different way. You're being encouraged to adapt, to evolve. That's what happens when there's change. Change is always occurring, right? Whether or not we have shifted with it is what's going to come under the microscope more over the next few months, because that's where the fruition resides, rather than exploiting or being exploited by what we think we should be or how things should be. Where can we see the illusion of that? Where can we see the cycles that have occurred? Where can we see that they're all part of something that goes beyond any of our understanding, and start to reclaim our focus on what we do have direction on? On the Wednesday, we have the Queen of Arrows, perfectly timed. She is the deer, the feminine in this deck. She has a big heart in between her antlers. She has the heart as the, I don't know if you can see this. Because I've moved the camera, it's more difficult to see. Yeah. She has the heart in the middle of the antlers. She has the heart as the antenna, and her body is pure. Yes, around her it looks like fire. It looks like spirals of fire, of orange, of potential creativity that when picked up from the heart, when pure of body and mind. Now, by pure, I don't mean being a certain way. I mean being present with the body and the mind and all aspects of ourselves. There is peace and connection to the earth here as something different is created. Being the Queen of Arrows, she's the Queen of Swords, and we don't normally see the Queen of Swords stereotypically as nurturing. We don't normally see that more direct energy, that direct focus, that direct direction as nurturing. But come Wednesday, once we've seen through the illusions, once we see where things have been exploited and taken advantage of, on the Wednesday it becomes our choice to say the most nurturing thing I can do here is actually stop wasting my energy. Yeah, true. We talk about fuel crisis. What is our fuel? What is our fuel? Our heart, our love, our light, our creative force. Where is that being blocked from us? Where is that being taken from us? Where are we wasting that? Where perhaps do we need to lock that down a little bit more? And then lock that down. I'm seeing relationships, right? Also being very, very aware of the people in our lives that do spark us, that do initiate us, that do, you know, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, those relationships that do ignite something within us that helps us to return back to who we are one way or another. Are we willing to lock them down? Are we willing to acknowledge what they bring? Are we willing to respect them, to listen to them, to, it's not about changing as a result of them, it's about communicating with them. Okay. On the Thursday we have the Five of Wands, which is power. In this deck, the Five of Wands is the, I think it's Neolithic man on the hill with the incredibly large phallus. I won't share it up onto the camera because there's a high chance YouTube will block it because of the naked depiction. However, he is surrounded by fire. He is in a pentagon shape, and when I saw it, when I saw power, when I saw the masculine, yes, I do see things collectively on the stage being imploded from, yeah, exploded from within, imploded from within. It feels as if on the Thursday, there's no point trying to make sense of it. It's more a, it's not a protective force, it's a very closed down force. Power from within, yes, 100% being at harmony with it, but if it isn't utilized externally, it has the potential to spontaneously combust. Okay, that's what I'm seeing on the Thursday. So be mindful of harmony and balance needed there. This isn't about keeping stuff out. You know, this isn't about boundaries that shut us out from the world. This isn't about not feeling things. This is about feeling things in our own alignment first, and then becoming the stick of friction within a situation that's going to create something different, but acknowledging that's what each other do to us also. That's what others do to us also. Maybe more on that, but on the Friday we have the Strength card, yeah. So we're only going to get what we're able to receive. So much as there could be more potentially on Thursday, there could be more blowouts, there could be more, so be mindful of cars as well on the road on the Thursday. The tiredness, there could be more blowouts as a result of defensiveness, as a result of insecurity. I was going to say instability, but it's insecurity. On the Friday, if we can find the strength, in this card she has her heart, she has the lynx by the side of her, but she also has the eagle on her shoulder and the sun behind her. If we can find the strength to see the bigger perspective, yes, of course, but also the light that is available with it, and bring that into our core, communicating with that through our language, through our actions, through our attention to detail. Attention to detail is one of our greatest strengths that is often manipulated, that is often exploited, that is often distracted from. If we can bring our attention to detail forward and as one of our greatest strengths on the Friday, then that power the day before that will either initiate it, or it feels like a bit of a loop, we'll be encouraged on the Thursday to focus on our energy, to focus on what is going on, to ensure that it is level-headed before we act out. From there, we will see more attention to detail, and from there we will have a greater perspective and a greater opportunity to change things. Thursday and Friday, very, very interrelated, very interrelated. Then on the Saturday, we have the Seven of Stones, and in this card, it is healing. I've just been seeing, I really want to go to Glastonbury on Saturday to do an Anubis course, and I can always see the stones there. On the Saturday, the antlers of the Queen of Arrows from the Wednesday. On the Saturday, whatever we pick up on heart coherence becomes the healing, becomes the light that will take us forward into the Saturday, becomes what will grow as a result. So keep an eye out on the Wednesday. Anything that comes to light for you, whether that's externally or individually, has the opportunity to ignite you, to glimmer you, to frustrate the hell out of you, to make you feel defensive, but also, on the other hand, to say, that's enough. This is what I've learned. This is what I'm going to do. This is where my focus is now. And with that comes a completion on the Saturday of deep healing as we recognize how much we have grown. There's going to be a lot of things that come to light potentially. Doesn't mean they'll happen. The ball is still in our court. The ball being the energy and the focus and the perspective and the drive and the fuel and the fire that we give something. This year is transformation. It is the Magician. It is the Horse. It is the Sun. It is the Fool. It is us and our ability to be creators of change this year. On the Sunday, yes, Four of Wands, celebration. On the Sunday, there's a coming home. I love this. This card came up this morning. And again, you can't see it. Smack bam in the middle is the equinox wheel. Behind it is the fire, a huge bonfire. To one side of it, and it's important to recognise what side. Not what side you're on, what side you're reacting from, what side you're working from, what side you're being glimmered and triggered from. So on the right side is the sun. Okay, so the masculine actions this week must be, and I will say must, which is unheard of for me, must be driven by light, must be driven by joy, must be driven by power, by connection, by warmth. I was thinking, what does the sun represent? What does the masculine represent? Warmth. Do we see the masculine as warm? Do we see our actions as nurturing? Do we see them as playful, as joyful, as strong, as sovereign? Do we see the masculine as sovereign? We're coming into the Easter weekend, right? The resurrection of the Christ consciousness. How do we actually feel, still feel about the masculine within and around us? On the feminine side, so I want to draw attention first to the equinox wheel, which is almost in the sacral. Okay, so recognizing the cycles that we're creating with emotionally. Okay, straight above it is the fire of transformation. If we don't understand what we're doing creatively, the height of the fire, the level of transformation available won't be as expansive as it could be. We are the sacred fire keepers, okay? We are the keepers of any change that we want to initiate in our lives based on our reactions. All of these cycles continually bring us home to this truth. All of them, to the power that is within us that will restore the healing that is needed, the strength to be gained, the focus of clarity that suggests the illusion of exploitation can only occur if we buy into it. If we buy into it. I went to a party this weekend with my cousin, and one of his younger boys, Alfie, it was wonderful talking to you. One of his younger boys could see, he could see what was going on with what was going on in the world, how it was trying to get his attention. And, there was an energy there of him being so young but so wise. Okay, so really feeling into that this week, really feeling into the fact that we have learnt these things in our cycles. We are aware that actually by taking away our focus point, by taking away our energy, our fuel, our soul, our spirit, whatever you want to call it, By separating us, it's causing exploitation. This isn't an illusion anymore. There are no conspiracy theories. You know, the whole conspiracy, the word conspiracy means to know the unknown. Okay, so even down to the tarot, all of the things that we can connect to would be or could be a conspiracy. There are no theories about the things that are happening. They are evident on different levels for us all. We know we're being used here, whether that's a relationship, whether that's the external. We know we're having things taken, put upon, controlled, but underneath it, surely now we must know that the power is us. if that's wanted so badly, then it's us, surely. And then we have on the left hand side, on the feminine side, a castle. I loved this card this morning because I had a moment of real clarity where I could celebrate. This card depicted exactly where I am. There's a castle, there's land that's had a bonfire on, there's the equinox at the bottom, there's the sun that was coming up this morning, being aware that we are exactly where we needed to be. Letting that full circle come, particularly with the feminine, that sovereign self that can look back and go, actually, everything that has been created, I've been part of. It may not be what we want or what we thought we wanted, but I've been part of. I've been affected by it all. We all claim to be affected by it all. I've been affected by it, which means I've reacted in it, which means I've become part of it. Reclaim that sovereignty of yourself. Celebrate that. Celebrate how that opens the door to any frustration you're feeling right now that simply demands focus from yourself, your energy, your light. And from there, where you're choosing to direct it and the outcome. Take care. I shall see you next week. Have a wonderful week.